Welcome, Jumbo. Thank you for joining us. You're listening to Operation Power, a voice for Black politics and revolutionary change. And we're so glad that you're joining us here on Black Power Media Reloaded and that we've been asked to be a part of that community. We're your co hosts here today. My name is Inez Barron, and I'm joined by my husband,
Charles Barron, and it's always an honor to be with my wife of 42 years.
Thank you.
Stunningly beautiful,
Thank you.
absolutely brilliant mind, and a deep love and commitment for our people.
Thank you. Back at you. Our bold, our outspoken,
Come
our
on now.
unbought and unbossed revolutionary, one and only Charles Barron. We're so glad that you're joining with us today. And we have a special program for you today. It's the topic of Africa for the Africans at home and abroad. And our special guest is none other than Michael R. Duncan, who is the President General of the UNIA, the United Negro Improvement Association. He's going to be our special guest. But as we get started, in our tradition, we're going to offer a libation, which brings an opportunity for us to invite our ancestors to come and witness what it is that we're doing. So we're going to ask our technician, Brother Kiru Jichuru, if he would play that libation video for us.
And so for this very important presentation, we begin by the pouring of libation. We pour libation first to our first ancestor, to that hidden one who, though hidden, manifests in all things as all things, that God-goddess idea in the universe by any and all names. To our first ancestor, we pour libation. Ashe.
Ashe.
We pour libation too to our ancestors because they were the first people on this planet, mothers and fathers of all mankind, flashpoint of the human family. To those ancestors, we pour libation. Ashe.
Okay.
Pour libation too to our ancestors because they were the ones who first gave birth to the idea of civilization, knew we would need a form of governance, and they nurtured that idea along the Nile until it reached its zenith in Kemet. There they built these gigantic monuments as evidence of that great civilization, and they carved instructions on the walls of temples and tombs for us, so we would never forget. To those ancestors, we pour libation. Ashe.
Ashe.
Pour libation too to our ancestors because over time they put together all the tenets of civilization and they took those ideas and left the continent. They were the people of the first Exodus. They left Africa and went all over the world and peopled the world. To those ancestors, we pour libation. Ashe.
Ashe.
We pour libation too to our ancestors because they did not sit on their laurels. They continued to improve, continued to evolve, and at each point of evolution, they again would leave the continent and settle and resettle the planet. They met themselves coming and going. To those ancestors, we pour libation. Ashe.
Ashe.
Pour libation too to those ancestors because over time, they found themselves the object of a forced exodus when they were kidnapped, shackled, cargoed, shipped out of Africa and enslaved in diasporas around the world. To those ancestors, we pour libation. Ashe.
Ashe.
Pour libation too to the ancestors left at home, the very young, the aged, the infirm, left to reinvent themselves, depleted of us, human resources. But they were enjoined by us in the diasporas, both objects of a global myopia that ruptured the soul of a people as it ravaged a continent. To those ancestors, we pour libation. Ashe.
Ashe.
Pour libation too to those ancestors because over time they began to remember who and what they were. Because no matter where they had been dropped off, they still retained bits and pieces of who and what they were. They retained that African core that described them. They began to remember bits and pieces of a song. They began to remember lines from a rhythm. They began to remember dances that they did in ancient times. They began to remember those ancient drum beats that they now beat out on bare skin. And so to those ancestors, we pour libation. Ashe. Pour libation too to them because they then began to teach each other. They began to resurrect and reconstruct that history and that culture. They became the new Africans wherever they were. They became the new teachers, preachers, archaeologists, the new singers, dancers, the new drummers, the new Jaliyah. They reconstructed that history and our culture and became new Africans everywhere. So to those ancestors, we pour libation. Ashe.
I
We
say.
pour libation to those ancestors because they are the ones who pass that information on to us. And so we pour libation to those of you who will watch this presentation, those of you who are the recipients of that pieced together history, of that reconstructed culture. To you, we pour libation. Ashe.
Ashe.
I say.
Pour libation to our children and those yet to be born. For they are the ones that you must teach. And you can only teach if you know the history. So to you who are learning the history and are passing on that history, and to our children who are learning that history and will pass that history on to all eternity, but they will call your name in all eternity. To our children we pour libation. Ashe.
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 Asheo.
Ashe. Yes, thank you so much. We believe that our ancestors are
That's right.
always going to be involved. We're standing on their shoulders. They've done the work, they've laid the path, and we're continuing the work that they have laid out. We want to talk to you briefly about what Operation Power is doing and how we got started. And we have a brief video that's going to talk about revolution and our grassroots organization, Operation Power.
How we going to make revolution from our houses? How we going to make revolution social distancing? How we going to make revolution away from one another? We have to be able to still get together, still talk, and utilizing the Zoom platform to have this Operation Power meeting is unprecedented.
So how are we going to make revolution? We're going to use the resources that have become so popular during the time of COVID when we couldn't come together, and we use that technology. We develop our skills and our ability to do that. And that's one of the ways that we're going to continue to make revolution, standing on the work that our ancestors have done. My name is, again, Inez Barron, and Charles and I have the perspective of having served in the New York City Council as council members and having served in the New York State Assembly as members of the Assembly. And we bring that perspective to what it is that we do, to our organization, and how we fight for our people to make sure they get the resources that they are entitled to. So we bring that perspective and that experience, and we know that we've been able to be successful for over 21 years of fighting for our people and bringing them the resources that they are entitled to. We've been able to bring in new schools, 3 brand new schools.
That's right.
We have a community center, which is the Prince Joshua Avito Community Center. We brought in housing so that our district is not being gentrified. Not at all, because we make sure that the developers who come with their ideas and their proposals are reflecting the median income of the people who presently live there so that they are not displaced. And that's a part of what we have the authority and the power to do through the New York City Council as council members. So we made sure that that was part of what we were able to do. And we also brought in jobs because we know that poverty is the great evil that we're fighting, one of the great evils that we're fighting. And when people have an opportunity to have an economic base for their income, that alleviates a lot of the evils and other situations that are negative. However, we do understand
that we are not going to be able to vote our way to liberation. We got to do so much more. And that's part of the reason why we're having this program today, because Marcus Garvey did so much more outside of the electoral arena. However, it is a tactic, a strategy to raise revolutionary awareness, political consciousness, and have a bully pulpit to organize around issues and organize for power, while at the same time delivering the goods and services that Inez just mentioned. So the electoral arena for us is, once again, not a panacea. It has its limitations, but it also has its great benefits.
And so we know that we've got to continue that struggle, and we know that we've got to be vigilant, and we've got to raise our people's consciousness. And we're going to give you now another video presentation of Operation Power and some of what we're doing in Operation Power as a grassroots movement.
Operation Power stands for people organizing and working for empowerment and respect.
Operation Power is a grassroots social justice organization founded by local community stakeholders, which includes activists, organizers, and leaders who understand that the system as it is currently structured is destroying us and our communities.
The system, the capitalist system, one that promotes human greed over human need, one that promotes profit over people, needs to be dismantled. These local community organizers recognize capitalism needs to be destroyed and replaced with socialism.
Operation Power was founded in 1997 with the understanding that uprooting capitalism needs to begin locally. Operation Power understood that our communities are the perfect vehicle to dismantle this parasitic capitalist system brick by brick, and the economic, political, and cultural institutions and other systems in place in our local community infrastructure. Whether it's the local school board, community board, city council, state assembly, all represents mechanisms to control the destiny of our people.
In 1997, Operation Power launched the campaign Charles Barron for City Council that would lead to over 20 years of radical changes in the East New York community. These changes included over 20,000 units of housing affordable to our community, three $88 million schools, over $110 million secured and allocated for community parks, millions secured for library upgrades, and another $42 million for the construction of a new library.
Cultural programs such as the Juneteenth celebration, Kwanzaa programs, and reinterment of Sankofa Park, securing thousands of jobs for local residents.
We've secured political seats that include city council seat, state assembly seat, state committee person, male and female district leader, chair of the local community board members, campaigning and getting a judge from the community elected, county committee seats, block association presidents, tenant presidents, and much more.
And all this was done while being Black radicals. We are Black radicals, which means getting to the root causes of the problems challenging our community. We need to get to the root and not lose ourselves battling the symptoms of this vicious capitalist system, because we know that revolution is the solution.
Operation Power believes in Black power for Black people. Black power is still needed and still relevant. Operation Power believes that Black radicalism is the only position we can afford to take, getting to the root of our problem for revolutionary change. Operation Power believes in community control for Black people as the only way to get to self-determination and liberation.
Operation Power believes that we need to move to a more socialist system, a communal system that doesn't suffocate but liberates. With these beliefs, we take collective action for our self-determination and liberation by being a part of Operation Power.
Welcome to Liberation.
So here we are, Operation Power. Now you've seen a bit of the video that talks about what are some of the accomplishments that we've been able to make. And we're excited that we're having this program today. Yes. We also want to remind you that there were several books that were highlighted during that. And we're going to ask that you get involved and purchase some of these books, read them. They have some great ideas and philosophy of what it is that we're talking about. The first one that you saw was Speaking Truth to Power. And it is written by none other than Charles Barron. And it is a collection of articles and essays that have been written over time on various areas and various topics of social and political importance. And this book is available at Barnes & Noble's online. So we invite you to purchase a book. There are lots of interesting things. The second book we want to have you interested in is It's Not You, It's Capitalism.
Right.
Why It's Time to Break Up and How to Move On. And that book was written by Malika Tabali. And the third book that we want to talk to you about, it's a novel, Black Rising, and it was written by Kevin Barron. So those are some of the books that we want to encourage you to get and add to your library. Thank you so much. We're moving on. We're going to get into our program. We're so excited that we have a special guest with us, and it is none other than Michael R. Duncan, who is the President General of the UNIA, the Universal Negro Improvement Association, started by the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey in 1914. And the great work that they have been doing has been under the tutelage of this great person, Mr. Duncan. And we're inviting him now to come to the studio and be able to come in and talk to us about what's happening. As you know, this is Black August, and Black August is the month where we talk about the great encouragement, the work, and the sacrifices that has been done leading to the point that we're at, and particularly as the work was done by political prisoners. And we know that that's the focus for Black August. And in fact, Marcus Mosiah Garvey was a political prisoner for the work that he did in uplifting and bringing forth our people.
Before we come on, because he's not in the studio yet, so before he arrives at the studio, we were honored to be able to find a taping of the voice of Marcus Garvey himself. Remember, we said that the electoral arena is one direction, but revolutionary nationalism, Black nationalism is another direction. And so we have many, many methods for our liberation. This is why we shouldn't argue and debate. If someone thinks that we should go back to Africa and liberate African countries and go there, fine. If others believe we need to stay here in the belly of the beast and liberate our Black communities all across this country, there's 50 million of us here, fine. There's 1.4 billion of us on the continent of Africa, fine. There's over 200-300 million of us in the diaspora when you combine the Caribbean and Central and South America, Brazil. So we need to organize our people. No sense in fighting each other. Most of our people are just trying to survive, not a part of organizations. So Marcus Garvey came to us. Matter of fact, he came to America in 1916. He was a great fan, a great admirer of Booker T. Washington. And he came and he wanted to learn more about how Booker T did Tuskegee Institute and how he was able to do so much economically. And so when he came, he said, "Up, you mighty race, up, you mighty race, you can accomplish what you will." And what he did was begin to build. And they say, some say 6 million, some say 11 million people, the greatest mass organizer of our people ever was the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey. As a matter of fact, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad in Detroit was a part of the Garvey movement. Malcolm's father, Malcolm X's father, was a part of the Garvey movement. Many of our struggles came out of the Garvey movement. So while we honor Marcus Garvey, we want to play a tape of his actual voice. So you'll be able to hear from him himself as we wait for the Honorable Michael Duncan, President Michael Duncan, to come on in the studio.
Did not suffer and die to give me an education to slight, oppress, or discourage my people. Because whatsoever education I acquired out of their sacrifice of over 300 years, I shall use for the salvation of the 400 million Black people of the world. And the day when I forsake my people, may God Almighty say there shall be no more life for you. I unequivocally rejected the racist assumption of much white American Christianity, namely that God had created the black man inferior and that he had intended Negroes to be a servant class, hewers of wood and drawers of water. Well, I predicated my view of man on the doctrine of Imago Dei. All men, regardless of color, are created in the image of God. Now, from this premise followed the equality of all men and the brotherhood of all men. The biblical injunction of Acts 17:26 reminds us that he created of one blood all nations of men that dwell on the face of the earth. I was most interested in brotherhood within his own race, because if Negroes are created in God's image and Negroes are black, then God must in some sense be black. If the white man has the idea of a white God, let him worship his God as he desires. We have found a new ideal, because whilst our God has no color, and yet it is human to see everything through one's own spectacles, and since the white people have seen their God through their white spectacles, we have only now started to see our God through our own spectacles. But we believe in the God of Ethiopia, the everlasting God, God of Father, God of Son, God of Holy Ghost, the one God of all ages. That is the God in whom we believe, but we shall worship him through the spectacles of Ethiopia. For 250 years we have struggled under the burden and rigors of slavery. We were maimed, we were brutalized, we were ravaged in every way. We are men. We have hopes, we have passions, we have feelings, we have desires just like any other race. The cry is raised all over the world of Canada for the Canadians, of America for the Americans, of England for the English, of France for the French, of Germany for the Germans. Do you think it unreasonable that we, the blacks of the world, should raise the cry of Africa for the Africans? The Negro is a man. We represent a new Negro. His back is not yet against the wall. We do not want his back against the wall, because that would be a peculiar and desperate position. We do not want him there. It is because of this that we are asking for fair compromise. Where the Belgians have control of the Belgian Congo, which they cannot use, they have not the resources to develop, nor the intelligence. The French have more territory than they can develop. There are certain parts of Africa in which they cannot live at all. So it is for you to come together and give us a United States of Africa. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We are not going to be a race without a country. God never intended it, and we are not going to abuse God's confidence in us as men. We are men, human beings, capable of the same acts as any other race, possessing under fair circumstances the same intelligence as any other race. Now Africa's been sleeping, not dead, only sleeping. Today Africa is walking around not only on her feet, but on her brains. You can enslave, as was done for 300 years, the bodies of men. You can shackle the hands of men. You can shackle the feet of men. You can imprison the bodies of men, but you cannot shackle or imprison the minds of men. Dive down, black men, and dig. Reach up, black men and women, and pull all nature's knowledge to you. Turn ye around and make a conquest of everything, north and south, east and west. And then when you have wrought well, you will have merited God's blessing. You will have become God's chosen people, and naturally you will become leaders of the world. And as you bow down to the white man today, so a lot of races bow down to you and call you a race of masters because of the superiority of your mind and your achievements. Because no race has the last word on culture and on civilization. They do not know what we are capable of. They do not know what we are thinking. They're thinking in terms of dreadnoughts, battleships, aeroplanes, submarines. You know what we're thinking about? That is our own private business. So give us credit for being able to use our minds. And with people becoming conscious of themselves, determined to use their minds, you do not know to what extent they can go. Liberate the minds of men, and ultimately you will liberate the bodies of men. We love the white race, not for social fellowship, but for the common brotherhood of God intended we should live. What satisfaction can anyone get in being happy and see his brother wallowing in filth, dirt, and disease? How can you be happy living in luxury and your brother's living in disease? And then when you try to help the one out of the disease, the subtle culprit talks about disloyalty. Black men of Carthage, black men of Ethiopia, of Timbuktu, of Alexandria gave the light of civilization to this world. Ethiopia shall stretch forth her hands unto God, and princes shall come out of Egypt. Because classes, nations, races have been quite quiet for over 4 centuries, who has merely borne abuse, insult, humiliation, whose forbearance can only be compared to the prophet Job, has likewise lifted his bowed head and raised it up to God's skies and cried out, I am a man, and demand a man's chance and a man's treatment in this world.
That's the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey.
I shall teach the black man to see beauty in his own kind and
cut it there. We have Michael on. That is the voice of the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey, a very powerful African leader who taught us to have self-respect and one God, one aim, one destiny. Africa for the Africans, those at home and those abroad. So I understand we do have Michael on now. Michael, you with us?
No, he's not on yet.
Oh, he's not on yet? Okay.
Yeah.
I just spoke to him. He said it was on. But in any event, so that was the voice of the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey. Our technician will try to get Michael on so he could come in with us. But Marcus Garvey, he was one of the greatest, as we have said, mass organizers of our people. It was Marcus Garvey who gave us and I'll let my wife take it. That's Michael calling now.
Marcus Garvey was born in August of 1887, and we know that August is, as we call, Black August month, and it talks about the political prisoners, and there are so many other events that happened in August. So we're going to make sure that as we continue with this month, that those persons who were prisoners, those persons who made the ultimate sacrifice of giving up their freedom, that we acknowledge them and call upon them to be able to continue the great work that we do and to be able to give us the assistance from their position and the sacrifices that they have done. So again, he was born in 1887, and there were other events that we know occurred in August. The Watts Uprising occurred in August, and the Black Lives Movement took off in an August month. And we know that August is a month that has had many Black activities and uprisings and resistance. And that's what Black August is about. It's about resistance. It's about taking a stand. It's about letting the system know that we're not going to be complacent, that we're not just going to be able to say that this is wrong without taking a stand and having resistance and fighting against that. So Marcus Garvey, as you know, he was inspired to say, well, listen, where's the Black man's army? All across the world, in the places where he had traveled, he saw that we were in a similar condition, that we were oppressed, and that we did not have the type of leadership that garnered any type of respect for us as a people. And what he said was he was going to, in fact, do that. He was going to provide an organization that would be able to bring our Black people together, to be able to have a spot of dignity and respect, and that he would be able to unite people all across the world, that would be happening. And he was successful, as has been said. He had millions, 6 to 17 million people all across the world in the chapters. And he also instituted the Black Star Line. He had a line of Black dolls. He had hotels. He had the ships that were bringing goods and traveling across the nation. And he was going to be able to do all of that as the leader, the first President General of the United Negro Improvement Association and African Communities League, the ACL. That was the full title of the organization. Marcus Garvey decided that he would be able to build that institution, and that he would travel all across the world, being able to bring people together in that regard. He also instituted the Nurses Association, the Black Nurses Association, and he knew that we needed those kinds of visual stimuli. So we had parades across Harlem and other areas where he went, so that we'd be able to put on our Sunday best. That's right. And be able to glorify ourselves with our manner of dress, because when the way you dress sends a message as well. And so he was able to do all of that.
And see, Marcus Garvey, a lot of people don't understand the power of the Garvey movement, because it influenced every other movement. And when he came in, as Inez said, and he had Black baby dolls and Black cross nursing, people began to be proud of being African. And then he came to Harlem, bought up real estate, and was able to have a Phyllis Wheatley hotel. And we're talking 1920. In 1920, we're talking about, the Great Depression was on its way. And you know how the Black community was in 1920. Marcus Garvey came at that time and built a Black Star Line steamship company. And this is where capitalists really had a problem with him because Paul Cuffey in 1811 or 1911, he did a steamship company too, but Marcus Garvey had the Black Star Line steamship company, was going to Central America, South America, and trading. And they said, whoa, you can't mess with our capitalism. So Marcus Garvey did just that. And he provided this kind of impotence for our people. And he said, where's your men and women of high affairs? Where's your government? Where's your factories? Where's your stores? Where's your hotels? Well, if you don't have them, I'll build them. Mm-hmm. So he went all over the country doing that and influenced the Mau Mau movement in Africa. Never stepped foot in Africa. 1920, there wasn't about to let him come to Africa, but yet he had the Negro world was in Africa, all over Africa, South Africa, influencing great revolutionaries, what Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, the Black Star Line was something he named his companies after, and he was influenced by Garvey. So Garvey had this kind of impact on us, and we're hoping to get the president of the UNIA here in New York. We're working on trying to get him on, but they have a UNIA chapter in New York, and they were able to get some people together and pull their money together and have restaurants and have grocery stores and places where our people can invest in it and get dividends paid to the people who invest in the stores and sell goods, produce our own foods and clothing and things of that nature. So Garvey was such a powerful impact. Now, truth must be told. When Garvey came on the scene in the 1920s, miraculously doing the stuff that he was doing, Garvey excited the working class, the Black working class, to the tune of millions. W.E.B. Du Bois, the talented 10th, and Cyril Briggs, who was ahead of the African Blood Brotherhood, was a communist organization. A. Philip Randolph, all of them were jealous of Garvey. And they were calling him names and said that he was a hustler, ripping off people. Now, I find it interesting that now, if you invest your money in a project that does not exist because it needs your money to come into existence, they call it venture capitalism. When Garvey said buy $5 worth of stock in the Black Star Line company, the idea, all of a sudden, it's mail fraud. It's a horrible thing. So Garvey was able to do that and buy 3 boats, the Phyllis Wheatley, the SS Frederick Douglass, all of these boats he bought, and they were in bad shape, and he had to put them together. And like in all of our movements, some of the internal contradictions, the internal conflicts, do us in ourselves. And Amy Jacques Garvey, his first and second wife, that both of them were powerful sisters who carried the Garvey movement. And I remember in the 1920s, I think it was 1921 or 1922, they had a UNIA convention at Madison Square Garden. Not only did he pack the garden out, thousands were outside who couldn't get in. And Garvey was able to, Garvey was able to attract them. So this movement is very, very powerful. I think we might have them on now. Let me check with K-Room. See if we have our guest on now. And he's waiting to sign in. So, excuse me, I got a little cold.
So we know that, as has been said, Marcus Garvey was married, and his wife, Amy Jacques, was part of the founding of the UNIA. Interestingly enough, his second wife was also named Amy, and she continued the great work that he had done, and she worked diligently on compiling his work and his opinions, the philosophy and opinions of Marcus Garvey. It's a very, very thorough book that she made sure was compiled and put together and published so that people would be able to always have that reference of what it was that his philosophy and opinions were. Marcus Garvey was unmistakably Black man. He was born in St. Anne's, Jamaica, and he took pride in his Blackness. And his parents named him Marcus Mosiah. The Mosiah part of the name is because they knew that he had the potential to be a great leader. And so the Mosiah is a variation of the name Moses. And he, in fact, did that. He led people from the time that he was in his early 20s because he saw that we needed someone that would be able to be prominent, to have an integrity, and to be inspirational. As you heard him speaking, you could hear that he had not only the factual and the inspirational message, but he also had a sense of humor. He understood that people needed to be able to have some release and involve that humor as well. So he was a very effective person, and great work that he had done.
Well, you know, we're trying to delay and talk as much about Garvey till we get our guest on. He's having technical difficulties. But Inez and I have learned so much about Garvey and really done so much nowadays to be able to at least have some discussion about him. The other thing is Garvey had a political party. He called it the People's Political Party, the PPP. He was even venturing into electoral politics. Often our people don't understand that some of these folks, Black nationalists, they like parts of their presentation, but he was also engaged in the electoral arena. They say he was a counselor in Jamaica before he came to America. So this is the stuff around the movement that we're really trying to get our people to understand. Yes, we got to have alternative institutions. Yes, we got to engage in the electoral arena, and Marcus Garvey did most of that. As a matter of fact, when you look at electoral politics, every revolutionary movement had to deal with state power, and so did Marcus Garvey. So as we go forward here in the 21st century, we got to realize that we cannot afford to leave any arena uncontested that our oppressors are controlling or have power in. And this is why we wanted to discuss Marcus Garvey tonight. So for those of you who are viewing this, we strongly suggest that you continue to read up on Marcus Garvey, study Marcus Garvey, and see how some of that can be applicable here in the 21st century, because we're in the belly of the beast, and we have to do everything in our power and search out everything that our great leaders in the past have done. And Marcus Garvey has so many appendages to his movement that we can use some of that today in our communities, as the UNIA has done in New York. They're buying up real estate. They buying food, producing their own food. People that can't feed themselves is very much in trouble. The Nation of Islam is doing a lot of that, feeding themselves, having farms and building institutions. The Shrines of the Black Madonna, they have 3,000 acres of land, and they consider themselves the Pan-African Orthodox Church, or the Pan-African church that Marcus Garvey first built on, because Marcus Garvey, he had Freedom Hall, but he also had a reverend, a Bishop McGuire, who was the head of the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, the Pan-African Orthodox Church. And so he was pushing a Black Jesus. And he even said Jesus Christ was the most revolutionary, radical the world has ever known. And these are the things that Marcus Garvey was built in. Adam Clayton Powell, father, sat at the feet of Marcus Garvey, and so did Adam Clayton Powell himself. So this was a man of history. Now, the other part I was about to tell you all about, which we have to tell the truth. That's why we have the book, Speaking Truth to Power. W.E.B. Du Bois and A. Philip Randolph, and Cyril Briggs, the Communist Brotherhood, they supported J. Edgar Hoover investigating Marcus Garvey. And they supported a government like the FBI going after Marcus Garvey because he was taking up all of the working class blacks that they wanted to organize. And so we got to be honest about what happened in history. A lot of bourgeois blacks that were talking about talented 10th and talking about the communists, this and that, supported J. Edgar Hoover going after Marcus Garvey. That's a damn shame. But that's a part of history that we have to recognize and have to be able to say that we don't want to repeat those mistakes again. That in this 21st century, unless somebody is a clear traitor, and there are some out there, that we want to make sure that we don't ever side with the FBI, even with people that we don't like, siding with the FBI to do in a black leader. So eventually he was arrested, mail fraud, wire fraud, and put in a prison in Atlanta. And in that prison, that's when he developed his speech, "Look for me in the whirlwind." And his eschatological statement of the life after, "Look for me in the whirlwind," became one of the most famous speeches he's ever made. And in this clip that we have, we'll bring it back on again and play more of it. He mentions that later on in that speech. But it was in that speech where he said, "I'm going to come back with countless Africans from the Caribbean, countless Africans from Africa, from the United States, from the Americas, and we're going to fight for our liberation, fight for our dignity and self-respect. Look for me in the whirlwind, a storm of African people." So the spirit of Marcus Garvey is with a lot of us today, as we not only looking for him in the whirlwind, we're trying to create a whirlwind right here in the belly of the beast.
We know that Marcus Garvey is the originator of the red, black, and green flag.
That's right.
Red is for the blood we've shed, black is for the race, and green is for the land, so the black man can take his rightful place. So he was the presenter of that flag, the red, black, and green flag that we see all the time. Charles has said one of his mottos was "One God, one aim, one destiny." And he understood that our unity and our progress would come from us coming together. He was a Pan-Africanist. He believed that all of us, all across the world who were Black people, needed to come together. He purchased Liberty Hall, which is where they had their meetings. And when he was in Jamaica, before he came to New York, he was involved in a trade unionist strike. So his leadership was preceding the time that he came, talking about the social conditions, particularly here in the United States. They owned, as Charles has said, 3 ships, which they purchased with the money that they got from persons who bought the shares in the United Negro Improvement Association. And they had 3 grocery stores, they had doll factories, and they were able to have people understand that our sense of growth and our dignity and our independence would come from an independent financial base. He was a threat.
Yes,
he was a threat to the system that talked about what it is that how they saw Black people. And he countered that with the UNIA. He countered that with the organization that said we've got to come together, the greatest mass movement that we can talk about, coming and bringing Black people together. So really did a great work. And we can't say too much about Marcus Garvey. Really can't say too much about him. And we know that the great work that he's done led to, as has been said, other organizations that came together that followed that model. And unfortunately, again, he was targeted by the government and supported in that attack by others who were perhaps jealous of what it was that he was able to do, who came in, they saw him perhaps as someone who was not of American birth and felt some kind of feelings about that. There was still this
This
sort of
is silly.
sectionalism and pettiness that keeps us divided. Until we can come together and put aside all of those petty differences, we're going to continue to be in a situation that keeps us from reaching our greatest potential and maximizing all of our abilities.
So we're going to ask Cairo, do we have our guest yet? We got 15 minutes left.
I think so. I'm going to bring him on.
Great.
So let's see if he can hear us. Mr. Duncan, can you hear us? I think you should unmute your phone if you can hear us.
Well, until we get that fixed, because time is moving on, could you put the rest of the tape on of Marcus Garvey's voice so that we can hear the rest of the clip while we're trying to get Mr. Duncan on?
Otherwise looking like what he's not. Back in the days of slavery, race mixture, miscegenation had occurred because the African woman had no protection from the slave master. Therefore, there is no need today for black people to themselves freely continue a practice that smacks so much of slavery. Our critics say that the race problem will be solved through higher education, through better education, and black and white will come together. That day will never happen until Africa is redeemed. Because if those who like W.E.B. Du Bois believe that the race problem will be solved in America through higher education, they will walk between now and eternity and never see the problem solved. God made man Lord of his creation, gave him possession and ownership of the world. And you have been so darned lazy that you have allowed the other fellow to run away with the whole world, and now he's bluffing you and telling you that the world belongs to him and that you have no part in it. I don't have to apologize to anybody for being black, because God Almighty knew exactly what he was doing when he made me black.
That's right.
If black people knew their glorious past, then they would be more inclined to respect themselves. Yes, you heard of Johnny Walker Red and black. Well, he had his adversities, but he's still going strong. Well, I intend with your help and God's grace to continue, because my work has only just begun. And future generations shall have in their hands the guide by which they shall know the sins of the 20th century. I know, and I know you too believe in time, but we shall wait patiently for 200 years if need be to face our enemies through our posterity. When my enemies are satisfied, in life I shall come back, or in death even to serve you as I served before. In life I shall be the same, in death I shall be a terror to the soul of then count on me to be the real Marcus Garvey I would like to be. If I may come in an earthquake or a plague or a pestilence or as God would have me, then be assured that I shall never desert you and make your enemies triumph over you. Will I not go to hell a million times for you? If I die in Atlanta, my work will only just then begin. For I shall live in the physical or the spiritual to see the day of Africa's glory. When I am dead, wrap the mantle of the red, the black, and the green around me, for in the new life I shall rise up with God's grace and blessings to lead the millions up the heights and the triumph that you well know. Look for me in a world when there is storm. Look for me all around you, for with God's grace I shall come back with countless millions of black men and women who are...
Look for me in the whirlwind, Marcus Garvey. Cairo, do we have our guest? Cairo, do we have our guest?
Can't hear you.
Well, look for me in the whirlwind was the famous phrase and speech, and you heard the power of Marcus Garvey. We've been having a lot of technical difficulties getting our guest on tonight, but we feel we shared a lot of good information, and Marcus Garvey spoke for himself tonight. So we're very, very honored to have this month, as Inez mentioned, Black August, free and political prisoners. And guess what? Marcus Garvey was a political prisoner.
That's right.
They arrested him, and in 1927, they deported him. And he had to go back to Jamaica, then to London. He died in 1940 in London. And it was interesting. This brother Duz Muhammad was a very, very mentor of Dr. Garvey or Marcus Garvey. But when he went back to London, it was interesting how he got a chance to see people writing his obituary before he died. So I guess God allowed him to see that, and he was saying, "Oh, that's what you think about me, huh?" So he got to actually see his obituary before he made his transition. Cairo?
Yes, unfortunately, I don't think we'll be able to get Mr. Duncan on. The technical difficulties have been a little bit too challenging tonight. So we'll have to get him on as a guest another
Yes,
time.
we'll have him come another time. So we just want to end the Marcus Garvey segment of it by saying this was one of the greatest mass organizers that ever lived. And every piece of literature you can find on him, Race First by Tony Martin, and also John Henry Clark has written stuff about him. Read and study Marcus Garvey. We also want to pay homage to and honor the transition of Cleo Silvers. Cleo Silvers was a revolutionary sister that was a part of both the Black Panther Party and the Young Lords Party. She did phenomenal work at the Harlem branch of the Black Panther Party. She was able to deal with the breakfast program, free clothing and free health care. Health was her issue. And she transferred to the Young Lords and became the director of the Lincoln Detox Center. And when the Young Lords and Panthers took over Lincoln Hospital Detox Center, and so she directed that and hired Dr. Mutulu Shakur, who was a political prisoner as well, a member of the Black Panther Party. And she did so much work in our movement around reparations, freeing political prisoners, you name it. Cleo Silver was there, for us. So her transition, we all are heartfelt for her transition, and we're just trying our best to honor her and share with her the people that didn't get a chance to really know her like we did. But we honor you in your spirit. Rest in peace, Cleo, for a job well done. I don't know if that was meaning we have him now, Kru, the guest.
Yes, I'm still trying to get him on.
I just saw his picture, so maybe there he is.
Are you hearing me?
Yes, finally got you. Well, we got about 8 minutes left, so just go straight ahead. We had to play some Marcus Garvey's tapes and voices, but you can just tell them this is the President General of the UNIA in New York, and
I'm on a conference call, yeah?
Yep. So you can just go ahead and speak for the last 8 minutes of the program.
Greetings, Sister Barron, Brother Barron.
Welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Finally, I'm so honored to be here. Great Garvey Day to both of you. I'm just so honored because we're coming up on the 17th of August, which is our greatest holy day of the year, the celebration of the greatest man that ever walked earth, the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey. He said it best. He said, chance has never yet satisfied the hopes of a suffering people. He said, I created a government for you. I gave you a flag. I gave you a constitution. He said, every African who has African blood coursing through their vein is a member of the Universal Negro Improvement Association and African Communities League. The greatest thing or the greatest honor for Mr. Garvey is to keep his movement going, because the powers that be did everything to alienate the membership, to destroy the government, because they said so many black people should not be organizing and existing under one banner. But here we are after 100 years and we are still strong. Knowing, brothers and sisters, if each of you pick up the baton of the UNIA, the work that Mr. Garvey left, we can build. Sister Barron and Brother Barron, both of you have been the cubs of Marcus Garvey. Mr. Garvey said it best. You have caged the tiger. However, my cubs are roaming. Yes. And both of you are definitely cubs of the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey. Join our ranks, brothers and sisters, that we can build that base, a strong economic base that is based in race first. We have the march coming up on Sunday. Join us in Harlem, 124th Street and 5th Avenue, as we celebrate the life and times of the Honorable Marcus Garvey, as we continue to canonize him. Remember, brother and sister, our ancestors only die when we let them die. Is there any special question you want me to answer, brother and sister?
Yes. I want you to talk more about the economic projects that you have right in Queens with the restaurants and people investing in it. And tell us more about that economic project.
Brothers and sisters, I've traveled through the street of South Africa, Ghana, Liberia, Cote d'Ivoire, Guinea, all those places, and I don't see any supermarkets that we own. I've traveled through the streets of Jamaica, Kingston, Jamaica. I don't see any supermarkets that we own. I've traveled through the streets of New York City, where you have a whole lot of Africans, and we don't own any supermarkets. So we decided to own our own, and we asked African people to invest in our project, and they have invested over going on $3 million now. And we have a successful economic business where we are bringing products from Ghana, we are bringing products from Liberia, we are bringing products from Jamaica, because we have the African common market, and we're going to bring products from everywhere where African people live. Remember, we cannot fight the revolution if we're begging the slave master, if we're begging him for phone service, if we're begging him for cash. We must have our own economics so we can finance our struggle. Our brothers and sisters who are fighting in the Sahel, they need us. They should not be going to Russia or any place else. They should be able to come to us. But brothers and sisters, we have to stop spending with the slave master, the colonizer, and come home to our business place, our rock. Let us make rock in every single black community in the United States and in Africa. But for that to happen, brothers and sisters, we have to put, as Mr. Garvey and the great Carlos Cook said, we must put race first. So again, Mr. Garvey organized 12 million African over 1,100 branches of the world in 41 different countries. And we are here. Mr. Garvey only die if we let him die, brother and sister.
Powerful, powerful. So you also have some things coming up, I think on the 24th or 25th, that you're going to have some panels and forums and talk more about. And you've been very instrumental in supporting our campaigns. You support everything that's happening in New York, outside of the Garvey movement. You are there. You and Brother Raymond Duguay have been there with the December 12th movement, with the Barron's campaign in East New York, with Simultep, and Dr. McIntosh, who works very closely with you. So talk more about that a little bit. And then
Brother Barron, you and Sister Ines, Brother Bashir Mchawi, Brother McIntosh, December 12th, Viola Plummer. You, brothers and sisters, inspire us. I remember as a younger man living in Brooklyn and seeing the sacrifice you make. I remember working for James Sanders as his chief of staff in the city council and only seeing and hearing your voice as that voice of reasoning for our people. So my platform that I'm standing on is what you and those brothers and sisters laid. So I thank you. So I said again, Mr. Garvey spoke clearly about you, brothers and sisters. So now it's good that these brothers and sisters have joined our ranks in the UNIA and allow us to continue doing the work. So we will have a platform with the brothers from WBAI where we're going to discuss our issue. We're going to have a program at Sister's Place because we have to work with December 12th and what Sister Viola Plummer left. We are here moving everything to work with our people, but join us. If you can't get all the information now, join us Sunday at 5 p.m. Marcus Garvey Park, 124th and 5th Avenue in Manhattan. Thank you.
How can they get in touch with you? You have a website or whatever?
Yes, but to make it quick, reach out to me at 347-528-4479. I go to bed late and I wake up early. I'm always doing the work of the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey.
Well, there, thank you very much, brothers and sisters. We've run out of time, but I'm so glad, Brother Duncan, that you got a chance to get on. We were trying to hold it down until
Thank
you
you,
came.
thank you.
We think
And
we did all
brother
right.
and sister, if you never heard it from me before, I love both of you, and I'm grateful for both of you. Thank you.
Likewise.
Thank you.
Likewise.
Likewise.
Thank you so much.
Well, brothers and sisters, you heard it. And in the words of Marcus Messiah Garvey, up you mighty race, up you mighty race, you can accomplish what you will. And what we say every week as we go off, say, the truth shall set you free, and power is the great equalizer. Black power.
Black power.